In this episode, I'll actually share with you 3 ways to boost your SEO rankings by making really fast, quick changes on your website, on blog posts and landing pages based on Google's EEAT methodology that anyone can do today. So if you're new here, my name's Josiah Roche, and I've helped my clients generate over 10 million organic visitors to their websites using simple strategies like these, what I'm going to show you today. And so let's get into it. So number 1 is you've got to stop hiding behind your content, right, on your website. And it's one of the biggest mistakes I see all the time, especially from people who are legit experts in their field, but they're too afraid of showing their face on their own websites. It's really weird. If Google can't tell who's behind your content, it has no reason to trust it. Right? And that's why if you can add really clear information about who the author was, having a bio on the website in any way or a Teams page really helps improve your EEAT scores. And most people don't do it properly. So every blog post or key page that you have that shares knowledge, it might be a blog post going through like the 10 things, blah, 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 blah. Each of those pages should have an author bio on it. And not just the generic author bio that, has a John Doe, I'm a, digital marketer. It can't just be something super generic. It has to go through and be a bio going through some of your experience, some of your certifications, your past work, and then linking back to a profile page that really goes into depth on that and the blog articles that you've written before. Whether or not you've been featured in a reputable publication, you can link to that. If you've spoken in industry events, you can mention that on your profile page. If you can add a lot of evidence in here, which evidence we'll go through basically, but if you can add this kind of stuff in there, it signals to Google and also readers that your content comes from a credible source. It's, it's proven, right, in some way. Beyond bios, right, you can also have a dedicated about page and you can tell your story there. Because the thing is, people trust brands with the face behind them. Don't really trust these faceless brands that have just got these cheesy boilerplate kind of about pages that everyone does. And this taps into what's called the familiarity heuristic, which is where we feel naturally more comfortable with things that we recognize, right? And so if website visitors see a real person sharing their journey, what they've gone through, how they started their business, challenges, and how they became an expert in that field or someone in that field that's, gone through the hard yards on the front lines, then they're more likely to engage and trust the content and therefore become a customer as well. So it's a win-win for an SEO standpoint, but also a conversion rate standpoint. So sales pages, landing pages benefit from this as well. So instead of jumping straight into features and benefits, like a lot of people do, they make that big mistake. Instead, you could start with problem, agitate, solution frameworks and basically talk to the visitor going through their problems, like you're probably facing this and this problem and this problem. And then you can weave and bridge that gap and say basically, hi, my name's Joe. I've been through that and I've gone through that and I've blah, 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 blah. So you're introducing yourself as a key person to talk to, that you understand their problems, that you're an expert in this in some way without saying you're an expert. It's freaking cheesy as hell. Try not to say that. But you can relate to the person on one-to-one level while increasing your conversion rate, while building in these EEAT methodology scoring systems, whatever you want to call them with Google. Once you've done this, the next step is proving that your claims, everything that you're claiming holds some weight to it. And that's where the second part comes in, which is number 2, show proof instead of making claims. So you can't just say that we're experts, blah, 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 because it doesn't mean shit unless you can actually back it up with evidence. And so there are little ways to do this, even if you don't have concrete evidence behind you, because Google wants to see this evidence. Google is not an expert in your industry. They're not an expert in every industry under the sun. They're just trying to look at differences between true experts, having a look at what they normally have on their websites and seeing if you're doing that as well, but also to see if you're going one step further and being more detailed. And so one simple way to do this on your blog posts or even landing pages is to link to other reputable sources when you're making factual statements, right? So if you're discussing a statistic or a trend, if you can cite a peer-reviewed study or an industry report or a government website, that signals that your insights are based on actual real research rather than just opinions pulled from thin air. And Google loves to see this kind of stuff. Even if it's on a sales landing page, if you can pepper this through your FAQ section on a sales landing page and linking to a third-party website that is a factual, like it's a government website, it's something trustworthy, then Google is going to see that as something to do with your EEAT scores, and it's just going to help your rankings a little bit more. Bringing proof directly into your content's another one that I can think of. So instead of saying like, we've helped hundreds of clients, blah, 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 you could also just showcase real case studies and success stories and link to those dedicated pages so that people can learn more and read the exact full-on case study or success story and what happened. Instead of just showing like, you know, surface level, we've helped hundreds of clients and then you've got nothing to show for it. You can go one step further than all your competitors and actually create dedicated pages based on those. So if you run a local service business, you can show before and after results. So it's proof, it's evidence that you know what you're doing, you know, from past projects or from clients' transformations. If you're in health and beauty, or if you're a dentist, whatever, you can, before and afters are evidence, right? And that shows that you know what you're doing. If you sell products, then you can include customer reviews that highlight specific outcomes, but they've got to be real reviews, you know, from like Google Business Profile, from Facebook reviews, from something else, Yelp, whatever. Because, you know, these aren't just for conversions, they're actually for your SEO. They help a lot with your SEO, and a lot of people don't know this. So when you place it strategically across key pages on your website, they act as little validation points for Google so that they can cross-check whether or not you're legit. Even better, if you've been mentioned in media outlets or podcasts or industry blogs, you can display those logos on your website and or quotes and block out quotes, and you can pepper those through so it just gives a bit more credibility to what you're doing, so that, you know, it makes you stand out from competitors from an SEO standpoint and a conversion standpoint. Getting featured in external publications, even, you know, smaller niche ones, even though they're not huge, it builds more credibility than not having them. Especially niche websites, when you're a dentist and you've got other dentists or dental like blogs pointing to you, even though they're not like the biggest publication on the planet, it's still more credible, and Google's going to see the relevance between that industry blog pointing to you, and it makes for really, really strong SEO. And they all build up obviously your trust signals, so that reinforces your authority in that space. We've covered expertise and we've covered proof. And the final thing I want to talk about in this video is making sure that your experience is obvious throughout your entire website, which you're probably getting a lot of ideas already. And Google's addition of experience, which added the extra E to EEAT, which was recent last year, it's no longer enough to just be knowledgeable on what you're talking about. You have to show firsthand your experience in the field. And so that means you need to personally weave opinions directly into your content instead of keeping everything overly polished and formal and robotic and, you know, looking like every other piece of content out there. So for example, let's say that you're running an e-commerce store selling handmade candles, right? So instead of just listing product benefits like long-lasting scent, you can share the process behind creating them. Like, I spent months testing different wax blends before landing on one that customers love. And small details like this makes the content way more authentic while reinforcing your expertise. And so images can play a big role in this as well. So there's this thing called the picture superiority effect, which basically proves that our brains retain images better than text. Okay, so if it's possible, if you can do this, but basically include photos or videos of yourself doing what you teach. So whether that's working on a project, speaking at an event, showcasing real world applications of your advice. And this applies to a lot of different industries. It's not just like consulting. So if you're a personal trainer, and you're writing fitness articles, they should demonstrate workout videos of you doing workout demonstrations, things like that. So the more clearly you demonstrate hands-on experience, the stronger your EEAT scores will be. And if you can combine this with like really transparent authorship, undeniable proof that you know what you're talking about, peppering in social proof, injecting your personal opinions. I love that when you can do it in blog posts as well, because that's a really quick win. You can add your own experience and your own opinions, because it's better to be opinionated than to be like everyone else and not be opinionated, right? And it just makes it so much faster for Google to rank you, because they're seeing that you really stand out in a lot of different ways that follow all of these signals. So as I've gone through, these are just 3 of the things you could do. There's many more, you know, tactics that you can try, but EEAT isn't some complicated SEO hack out there. It's literally like Google is trying to trust you. Give them reasons to do that. You've just got to make your content way more trustworthy and real and transparent, right? Be more human, because Google just wants to rank content that helps people, right? They don't care how it's done. They just want the content to help people. And these small things that you can implement will help do that. And if you're doing good work, don't hide it, right? You might be doing really amazing work that people don't know about. You're just not documenting it, right? So you can show who you are, you can back up what you say and make your experience really clear and heard. And that's actually what moves the needle with SEO in general. That's all we have time for today. If you found this episode helpful, please like and subscribe. And if you've got any questions, please drop them in the comments below. I'll be happy to answer them. Until next time, cheers.